Transportation is an overlooked feature by the community by and large. Only when it takes an egregious amount of time to get around do zombies players begin to say, hey, what's going on around here? But is transportation around zombie maps as simple as throwing a bunch of floating portals around the map? Or does generic transportation cheapen the world's immersion and affect the design of the maps? I look to answer those questions and more on today's episode of The Mainframe. What do I mean when I say transportation inside Call of Duty Zombies? When I say transportation, I'm referring to how players get around the map. The more efficient the transportation, the better the flow of the zombie maps can be. World at War through Black Ops steadily improved and played with transportation until Black Ops 2 brought it to a grinding halt. Bar none, Black Ops 2 had the worst transportation flow overall. Transit made players decide if they wanted to wait for the bus to circle around to their location, use random teleport lamps if they were available, or rough it into the fog while screaming, bug-eyed denizens of the forest raked your eyes for the next 2 minutes. Think how long it takes to get from one area to the next in transit. To get around the entire map without utilizing the bus would take players upwards of 10 minutes of incoherent screeching. Die Rise lacks a quick means of transportation unless you can quickly build the trample steam, and that's only helpful in some locations if you know where to place it properly. Otherwise, players are stuck waiting for elevators. Even if they get the key in the starting room, it's a one-time use. There was no quick and easy way to get around these maps. Mob of the Dead had a similar loop problem where you had to take the plane to get to Pack-a-Punch. It was an endeavor just to upgrade your weapon. Origins suffered greatly from even the mud slowing you down. God forbid you needed to get by a robot on the side of the bunker. You would run all the way from church to bunker and you never have a chance to get there in time. And Buried, you'd have to go back to processing if you want to get back to the normal side of the map after you went through the mansion. All these ways of transportation slowed down the game in Black Ops 2. Transportation impacts the zombies' experience critically. First, let's dig into how transportation gives zombies maps their identity. Knocked through Shinonuma were small enough maps that getting around efficiently didn't need to be a major consideration. Derice was the first map where teleporters were introduced. The MTD, or Matter Transference Device, wasn't just a clever way to help players get around, it served a narrative purpose in the storyline that ended up lasting for the entirety of its run. If you recall Richtofen and Maxis' conflicts, they stemmed from Maxis stealing Richtofen's accomplishments with the MTD testing and claiming it for his own. And then more events occurred to dissolve the relationship, like hoarding the Wonder Waffle TG2 and not putting it in production. But that is the lore of Call of Duty Zombies. I'm not going to get into that in this video, but this is a golden example of how impactful transportation can be inside a zombies map to players. Let's run down major transportations in Black Ops 1, then compare them to Black Ops 4, and then some of the other games to help paint a clear picture. Kino der Toten reused the teleporter from Derice. It still fits the theme of the map and allowed players to visit 4 extra rooms outside the map to reinforce the setting and the narrative of the map. But overall, not as creative as the rest on this game. 5 put a spin on teleporters, adding an annoying RNG element to the mix that players could circumvent by taking elevators to get where they wanted to go. 5 promoted a risk-reward mentality. For free, you might instantly get to where your destination is, or you might not. Then you have to wait to reuse the teleporter while zombies hunted you down. Ascension introduced lunar landers, which were an experience in their own right. They allowed players to get around the largest map at the time fairly quickly with a button press. The landers contributed to the main quest, opening Pack-a-Punch and sending the rocket into space. It also introduced the Gersh device, allowing players to use a handheld teleporter. All these were great visual displays that made the characters feel like they were in the map. The setting was real and kept the gameplay flowing. Call of the Dead introduced zip lines. Technically, Shinonuma introduced zip lines, but not to this scale. The flipper, the ice slide, and the perk PhD was actually used in a creative way on this map, allowing players to fall off the top of the lighthouse to instantly get to ground level to get around the map faster. Shangri-La reused Call the Dead slide, but added geysers and a minecart to get around. And finally, Moon added a new take on the teleporter. Reused the Gersh device teleporter from Ascension, added a Q&D RNG teleporter, put that cosmonaut inside the map that could technically teleport you around, and put in bounce pads that helped you get around in certain areas or inevitably trapped you bouncing up and down like an idiot for 5 minutes. In comparison to Black Ops 4, the Ether story followed transportation wonderfully. Oh, I didn't expect that, did you? Blood of the Dead allowed players to use a weird energy ball transportation to get from one side to another, though there were still plenty of dead ends around. If you had to go from Pack-a-Punch on one end of the map to the other, it was still a trek. So a little room for improvement there. Classified fixed the RNG teleport pads in 5 while maintaining its previous systems. A big thumbs up for the teleport system in Classified. In transportation, Alpha Omega slowed down the creativity in BO4, but maintained some identity reusing the 5 teleporter pads, but you had to build them this time. Now, finally, in the Ether storyline, Tag Der Toten did a great job of adding to Call the Dead's excellent transportation system. Tag got more zip lines to new areas, it got alcoves your players could swim through, don't worry about, hypothermia, but that was still cool, and it allowed you to blow up blockages to unlock quicker paths around the map. Look how clever the idea is to shoot a pipe to cause water to leak onto the fire, blocking the player's way into the bottom of the boat inside Tag Der Toten. These clever ways to reward crafty players should be the norm in addition to well-thought-out transportation systems. They give maps some kind of identity. Black Ops 3 had Wonder Spheres, a well that shot you up into another section of the map. Low gravity in certain areas in DE and Rev. Classic teleporters in other maps. Pipe systems, dragons, a railway train. Each of these transportation methods created an identity for the maps and made players experience special. It immersed them in the world they were in. Transportation systems add to the map's gameplay flow positively, and it reinforces the gameplay loop. But Black Ops 3 through Black Ops 4 opened the doors to losing that valuable effect of a well-thought-out transportation system has on, and here's how. In Shadows of Evo, Treyarch introduced rift doors, which fit the map generally and helped the narrative flow in Shadows of Evo. But we would see these reused again in Revelations. As Johnny J25 famously says, Revelations is a clip show. The map loses its identity when the assets are reused in uninteresting ways that add nothing to the atmosphere. What's more enjoyable to the player, taking a lunar lander or walking through a portal? This is not the end-all be-all for starters in transportation and map design. Please don't think I'm about to die on this hill for transportation. It's the only way. This is the most important thing. It's not. But this essay is trying to point out how much transportation can mean to the player, how much it can add when done right. The portals and Revelations don't further immerse the players in the map. They don't add any special experiences like this made-up example. Hey dude, remember that time in Shangri-La I took the minecart and revived you when you downed in the power room with my ballistic knife shot just before you bled out? That was amazing. That scenario probably has happened in Shangri-La. We've seen all sorts of crazy revives or last-minute heroic arrivals inside maps thanks to unique transportation systems. You get a lot of great experiences that make the gameplay better. Even the use of teleporters in Doris put players back in the center of the action with temporary conditions, like stunning the player while giving them a power-up drop, as you could literally see all the zombies pouring out towards you on the mainframe. There was still a logic to it, even though it was still the detriment of press a button, instantly teleport to where you want to go. Transportation is like an onion. It has layers. It allows players to connect to the map as they escape a zombie horde or try to save a downed teammate. The Chaos storyline completely missed this opportunity in Black Ops 4. Sadly, the maps that needed the most identity to win over the community because it had the monumental task of replacing the Ether storyline were given the most generic and uncreative means of getting around. Every map played the same in the Chaos storyline. Activate the Sentinel artifact, go through the teleporters, and that's it. Yep. Ancient Evil only gave us a quick taste of something new by riding on Pegasus. But that's taken away after the cutscene. Oh, here's an example to bring together what I'm talking about in this video. Imagine inside Dead of the Night. Instead of going through portals to get around, players could go unlock hidden passageways behind bookcases. The map would be leaning into the murder mystery mansion / clue vibe that it gives off. To make the experience special, you could hide something within these quick passageways like Zetsubo no Shima did with Rainbow Water in its tube system. Eliminating the generic click a button and go here can add a lot to players' experiences in maps. Maybe a player's learning where these made-up secret passageways lead. They go inside and come out the other, only to run smack into a player's horde. Oh, I didn't know I was going to be here. Or the clever player who's done this enough times knows exactly where the passage leads, allowing the teammate to watch as a bookcase opens up, revealing their friend triumphantly running towards them and reviving them in the last second before they bleed out. Instant teleportations like the generic trial teleporters or elixirs like Nowhere But Here ruin these gameplay experiences for players. They transform the gameplay into click the button to win. Voyage could have benefited from pneumatic tubes we saw in the intro, getting players around the ship in some sort of pneumatic pipe system. This would help introduce players in this new universe what the technology is like for our characters. The point is, if transportation is overlooked, it removes the many benefits it brings to the table, especially in good to okay transportation systems. They can bring okay maps to become much better maps just by having a good transportation system. I would argue bad transportation causes many of the Black Ops 2 maps to be held back from being better. They could be so much more enjoyable maps that they get such a bad rap for is because of how annoying it is to play those maps, to get around. Transit could have benefited from its original design that was found in the leftover code of Black Ops 2. Originally, the transit bus could be called to any location. Then you could select where you wanted to go, but you had to find fuel to refuel the bus. That was the trade-off. Already, that's leaps and bounds better on how to get around than what we already had inside the map, and it was still using assets already present. Die Rise could have allowed keys to be more than one-time use, which would have dramatically increased how much better getting around the map would be if you could call the damn elevator down. Origins had teleporters and a tank, but they were in locations way out of the way, compounded by the mud slowing you down. Make those transportation systems more convenient, or allow the premise crew to unlock secret tunnels the excavation site was digging, but didn't finish when they were trying to find the premise statues. Running the tank path to drop down into the starting trenches is the right idea. Origins is a good map that didn't go far enough due to its size and implementation of mud in its transportation systems. It's still a pain to get around on that map. Now, to be fair, there is a conversation about the maps fighting against the players, that the maps are their own challenge. The mud purposely slows down the player to make the zombies catch up to them. Make it harder. Make it harder to get from robot foot to the other. Part of the challenge of the map. If you want to get somewhere in Die Rise, you better know where you're going. Make sure your decision is well thought out, because otherwise, you're going to run through the entire map doing a circle just to get someplace you want, because there's no backtracking. Transit is all about risk-reward of running into the fog to get somewhere quicker at the cost of getting lost, dying, or having your eardrums rupture from the screaming denizens. I say there's a valid point to those arguments. Sentiment. It wants the game and the maps to still be challenging. I agree. But it doesn't have to come at the cost of quality transportation systems that are inconvenient and uncreative. I am arguing that players lose out on cool experience in-game when interesting transportation systems are replaced with teleporter portals. Most Easter egg quests incorporate their unique transportation into their quests to give players a chance to see what this map has to offer. The final point is unique transportation forces the devs to become more creative for their maps. Instead of plopping down a portal, they now create a system in the map that builds out the location. It changes the layout and the flow of the map. I would bet that if you interviewed a Treyarch dev, they would say how at least one of their map layouts completely changed because of its transportation, or A map's transportation completely dictated a map's design in the early stages. The very foundation of map design derives from how the player can get around. We will never experience what creative ways the Chaos crew could have gone from the dark side to the light side in Ancient Evil or any of their other maps, because there was no need to think of anything new with portals. I would bet, though, that the same dev would argue it saves development time using the same means of transportation map to map. They don't have to come up with something new every map. But I would argue that has led to Call of Duty maps feeling the same. If all transportation systems are the same, then we are playing in a sandbox map with the same weapons and the same playstyle map to map, and who wants to play that anymore? Now it's just about the grind. And I'd further argue repurposing assets that they've already used, but making them feel unique, like the slide in Shangri-La compared to the slide in Call of the Dead, give two different experiences. So it's not always needed to start from scratch. But I do want to acknowledge developers can't just make unlimited new transportation methods due to their limited resources. Again, I'd like to say this video essay is pointing out how transportation is a big deal in zombie maps, but it is not the be-all end-all of Call of Duty Zombies. I have found some viewers take these Mainframe videos as all or nothing in terms of agreeing or disagreeing with my essay and argument or thesis. My intended point is to dive into the nuance of Call of Duty Zombies in game design. Every Zombies map has something great and awful about it, and I find that fascinating. This goes for all the episodes so far. These are not the be-all end-all thing for zombies per episode. There's always more to it. Anyway, I wanted to make that clear. Otherwise, be sure to be subscribed to this channel and turn on notifications to never miss a single episode of the Mainframe. I post a new episode every Friday. It's supposed to be at 4:30 Eastern, but we're getting there. Leave a rating for the YouTube algorithm and leave a comment to help this video out. Thank you to all my patrons who make these videos possible. Stay safe, and I will see you in the next episode of The Mainframe.